Good morrow, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm Jack B. Flippin.
We're here with Kawa and Mazer. Kawa is my co-host here, and Mazer Ludd is the lead dev on Nebulous Fleet Command, the game we're all excited to play that comes out February 11th. We got a couple of questions for him, but first off, I want to thank him for being here and taking the time because I know he's busy. Thank you for being here, sir.
Well, yes, hello, thank you. I haven't done an interview since the Space Game Junkie one, so this is kind of cool. I like doing the interviews, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
So I think, we're all waiting here as of time of recording. We have 12 days till Nebulous Fleet Command comes out. Are you excited for the launch? Are you ready?
Actually, we're on a good track. I was really worried when we picked the release date because I had to pick the release date and something that lined up with my schedule at work and when I was going to be able to take some leave in order to make sure that everything went off smoothly. And so I just kind of got slapped with February 11th as my date that would fit nicely. And it was a little closer than I wanted it to be, but I've got pretty much everything that was supposed to be done. And I just want it to be over at this point. I just want the game to be released so people can play it, and the suspense is killing me.
You too.
Yeah, that's definitely suspense is definitely killing a few of us. So I've seen a lot of the game being played on with like the conquest things on a lot of the different YouTubers we have in your community Discord. What so far has been the most interesting development of the game? Like watching as a developer with people playing it in early access.
The most interesting part is probably just watching the game, just kind of working the game into a good balance state. It's been really hard, and I think that we've had a huge benefit of. I made a good decision early on where I just let people start playing way before the game was in any kind of state where I would actually consider it presentable to the public. So it was good to see the game get played in a way that I didn't expect it to be played. And when we first started, people will tell you all the time, I used to beg people to post videos and give me videos. Every time there was a game going on, I'd ping them, hey, don't forget to record it and send it to me. Because part of that is that I just like watching people play it. It's really cool to see people play something that I made. But also, I would just take those recordings and sit down with them with a notebook and watch them through 3 or 4 times and just take notes on what was broken, what wasn't playing the way I wanted it to, how players were exploiting certain things. And I think that gave me a really good opportunity to work the game into the state it's in now, where it's fun and tense and difficult, but also not one thing that's completely overpowered, unless you talk to some people about missiles or railguns, but that's besides the point.
So before we get any further, let me ask. I know you have a couple other people that are helping you with this. Do you want to tell me who they are and what do they do?
Yes. So the team is 4 people. I'm the lead developer. I'm the programmer and the designer, and then I also have Stefmo, who is our modeler and texture artist and like lead technical artist, and they do. They take my really bad drawings and turn them into really awesome models and do really awesome texture work on them so that they just look really great. Marshall is a professional Foley artist, and she also does a little bit of music here and there, but mostly she does the sound effects, which really pull the game together. As soon as I got sound effects in the game for the first time, the difference that it made was incredible, and Marshall does an awesome job with that. And then we've got Lauren, who's our newest addition to the team, and she's a composer. And you've probably heard her music in some of our streams. We wanted to get music in the game for a really long time, but it's really hard to find composers because it's such a rare skill, I guess you could call it. And we were thinking it was going to be a post-EA thing, but we happened to. She's a friend of Stefmo's, and we just happened to get her. And she's done really, really awesome work for the soundtrack. Just sounds incredible.
Being a YouTuber who has to find free use music all the time, I can understand the position you were put in for that one.
Yeah, trying to find free open use music was not really an option because there was a very specific mood that I was going for with the game, and you're not really going to find that in just open music that you can find anywhere.
Yeah, it's really hard to find anything that sounds Battlestar Galactic-y with drums and whatnot and still be free use. Yeah, I get you.
For sure. So, Nebulous is kind of one of these games I've noticed. I've not seen anything quite like it on in any gameplay, like of any of the games I've played. I mean, I've played Homeworld, I've played a few other space sims, and I just kind of am curious as to what made you want to develop it, like as it is right now. Like, what was the initial design idea?
What made me want to develop it is exactly what you just said, which is that there was no game that was doing what I wanted it to do. There wasn't anything that would give me the level of control that I wanted of the ships and the level of customization and all that. And so I was like, well, I know how to program, and I think I can probably be good at game design if I put enough work into it. So let's try this out.
Okay. I mean, so you literally just pulled the Thanos, just fine. I'll do it myself.
Pretty much.
I like it. Just willing your baby into existence here.
Yeah, and this is not the first iteration of the game. I think you may have seen in the Discord me talk about previously, or in my first devlog, that the game was originally pretty different, but always kind of had the same general theme to it. And it's just been a journey to get to the point where it is now. But yeah, there just wasn't a game that gave me what I wanted.
I feel that with that whole kind of. I've played Star Trek Fleet Command, I've played Klingon Academy, I've played Homeworld games, I've played Total War, I've played naval games, and it's just like, why can't they get. I've played EVE Online for a good decade of my life.
God, me
and I
too.
feel like, yeah, and I feel like you have taken what I've always, like, I spent more time probably in EVE Fit and all the different fitting tools more than I've actually played the game. You've really done a great job bringing in what makes a unique Starship game that really hasn't. No one's ever attempted to go as deep as you have with this. What makes this game unique in the world of Starship combat sims?
I don't think we've quite covered it. Yes, there's nothing that really does exactly what this game does, but in terms of what makes it unique, I think that a lot of people might jump on the customization that you were talking about first, but I don't think that that's the right answer, because there are lots of space games that have deep customization. Maybe ours goes a little bit deeper, maybe not as broad because there aren't as many weapons and stuff as certain games like maybe Star Sector has. But we have a lot of stats associated with those and things like that. But nowadays, it really seems like every space game has some level of customization in it. So I don't really think that that's our unique point. I think the unique thing about Nebulous is the finality of everything. You don't get every shell and missile is irreplaceable. Every ship is irreplaceable, and I don't think there's any other game, any other tactical game or strategy game, except going back all the way to Nexus, the Jupiter incident,
Oh yeah,
where
that
you
game.
really,
Yeah.
where you don't get your units back, where you actually have to count ammo and missiles. Although I think Nexus would just refresh your missiles, so maybe that's not even exactly the same.
Yeah, no, there's been a few space games I've played. One that kind of comes to mind with a bit of, and this is not at all like in the Starship Sim, but like just kind of basic ship design and going through what you want. Rebel Galaxy. I think it came out like 5 or 6 years ago. I could be wrong though. And that seemed to be one of the closer games. Not, talking about Star Sector, because let's be honest here with that game, it's very much um, Nebulous but 2D. It feels like, and maybe that's not fair. That's not quite fair, but it definitely the combat definitely feels very similar in that way, where you have your missiles, you have your guns. But so far, I'm excited. I mean, it's exciting to watch even. But
Yeah, there's actually, like, speaking of watching, there's a really weird kind of dichotomy between the spectators and the players. I didn't really intend the game to be a spectator sport, although because a lot of people don't have the game right now, they like to watch the streams. But when you're talking about a game where your resources are continuously decreasing, what ends up happening is that a lot of the action in the larger battles happens in the first half of the game, and then it kind of peters out from there, and you're really just cleaning up. But from a spectator perspective, that kind of maybe gets a little boring. But from the actual player perspective, it actually kind of ratchets it up, because even though you don't have as much action going on, if you're down to your last ship, there's still that tension. Even though you're not focusing on 10 different things at one time, there's still that constant fear gripping you of, what am I going to do? This is my last ship and I've got 5 missiles left. How the hell am I going to win this?
It feels like you have set up a way of making a chess game in space where you've brought your own pieces and it's not necessarily the default set, and you don't know what's on the other side of the board. But as you're finding that out and you're losing pieces, you're getting, it like, I don't know. Like, I like the tension because at first it feels like I'm watching the Battleship TV show or the movie that came out. Like, it's fun, it's explosive, there's a lot of stuff going on. But then all of a sudden you get down and it's almost like watching a submarine movie at the end where, you might pull off the underdog thing, but you may not either.
It feels like watching it to me, and maybe I'm wrong here, but it feels very much like watching the finale of like the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where there's just shit going everywhere. There's explosions. It's just all action all the time, and then by the end of it, it feels like, as he said, watching like Saving Private Ryan or these other like really like 1917, like all these really tense like intimate moments. And I've seen the start of a match where you see, okay, here's a battleship, right? It is flotilla, and you see a bunch of these ships get taken out very early on, and then you watch a player with that single battleship just fight for their life, and I love watching it. It's just so much fun. The only complaint I have is a spectator can't see what's going on inside the ship. Is that by any chance in development? Are you guys going to be doing anything else with the spectator cam, or?
It's not a tactical limitation or anything. It's just that in order to save some resources, I clear out all of the DC boards for any ships that the local player doesn't own. And since the spectator doesn't own any ships, I delete all of them. So it could be doable. I just
Okay,
don't do it.
Maybe a mod later.
maybe.
A spectator mod. I don't know. Like, I'm looking forward to playing this game. I'm also looking forward to dying a lot in this game because I don't know what I'm doing yet. But watching this has been definitely fun, and I can't think of a game I've literally found, and within 3 weeks of like knowing of it, I'm watching and consuming every bit and every article and every video I can find and or make.
The good thing is, I think that even though you're going to die a lot, like you said, I don't think you're not going to have fun doing it, because even in the matches that I lose, I have a blast every time I play.
I can tell that by the people who are losing. It gets still exciting and fun to try to at least, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to see how many of these guys I can take out with me.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those feelings I get watching a couple of these conquest matches go on, which have a bit of a higher stake, I think, than just a random game. And I think it's really cool that the community's done that. Kind of brought this idea of a living, breathing fleet fight going on. But
I literally have popped popcorn and sat down and watched this with you guys.
It is definitely a fun fight. So with that though, like, do you think the most surprising thing you've seen in those matches, in any match really, or anything you've played in where you go, that's not how I intended that to be used, but okay.
Oh, that one's easy. The point-holding battleships. So you guys, this may have been before you guys joined the Discord, but when we first introduced the battleship, what one of the players decided to do was create a basically empty battleship with a single missile launcher on it in a place that was very hard to hit. And they would just drive that battleship onto the point. And since it was very cheap, they'd make 4 of them in a fleet.
Oh, geez.
And they would just drive it onto 4 of the 5 points, and it would sit there, and nobody could kill it, because the only way to capture the point if there's another ship on it is to make it defang it, is what it's called. So you have to destroy that one missile launcher that's really hard to get. Battleships are really hard to kill, and unless you hit that one critical module, it's just going to stay there. So that was the most surprising. I hated it. It happened for a really long time before I figured out a couple mechanics that would mitigate that. So hull structure is one of them, and then a major rebalance of all the hull points was another one. So the hull costs went up like massively, so that the majority of the cost of a ship in many cases was now the hull itself rather than the equipment.
We actually saw something similar to that happen with the Fight of the Battleships game, where they were punching each other out, and it turned out in the end, one of the destroyers or corvettes was actually holding the point, hiding behind a rock.
Battleships are hard to kill.
That was a fun match to watch, though. It's just like,
when is it gonna die?
No, And are battleships as tanky as you'd like them to be right now, or are they not? Are they too tanky?
They're a little too tanky. I'm probably going to do some stuff like reducing their structure. And so structure in this game, just for viewers, doesn't work the same way that it works in other games. It's not like a hit point bar. When the structure of a ship fails, it kind of simulates the ship starting to come apart at the seams a little bit. And so hits to different parts of the ship start to spread damage out rather than being totally localized.
Ah.
Okay, so that's an interesting mechanic. So if someone's just sitting there taking shots in the midsection constantly, that damage might bleed into the reactor and cause a big shiny boom that makes my eyes hurt every time I see it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that boom.
Oh, such a good boom! Like the pain is a good pain.
And I like the fact it doesn't happen all the time either.
That's another thing.
That was pretty important to me, that the runes of the battle would stay on the field for the whole game, unless you got a rare event. Maybe not super rare, but the reactor bloom is rare enough that it is a kind of a treat when it happens.
Speaking of treats, what is your favorite part of developing this game?
Watching people play it, definitely. That's the same reason that I would always beg people, aside from the notes that I would take on watching the games, but I would just beg people to post videos so that I could watch them and see people enjoying the thing that I've put so much work into.
Oh, I love it.
That good shit right in my veins, please. So, what you like people? You like watching people play it, but when you play, I'm real interested. What does Mazer, knowing all of the numbers, knowing everything about the game, what do you bring in your fleets? Like, what's your, if you could like narrow it down to like, this is the thing I would like to play. What's your favorite fleet design that you've kind of built and brought?
The thing that I have the most fun with is beam destroyers. They die all the time, and I almost never win when I bring them, but they're just fun. So even though I know all the numbers and I know what all the optimal strategies are that the players use, I still prefer to bring beam destroyers just because I really enjoy it.
I'm actually, I talked to Jack because we're both excited for the game. We're doing what we do here. We wanted to make a lot of cool videos and just play together a lot. I was like, I'm gonna have to try beam destroyers because I mean, I think it'd be hilarious just to sneak up on some battleship and just laser its ass off and just see the player get kind of
They're so pretty
about it.
Yeah,
It is. Also, that's another thing I really like. Yeah, who came up with doing the damage on the ships being localized and actually showing everything? Was that you, or did someone else bring that up, or
yeah, that
what
goes
kind of?
all the way back to the very, very beginning of the project when it was actually just me working on it. So I needed a way. I wanted the armor damage to be localized because in the original iteration of the game where it was voxel based, all the armor damage would have been localized. And so the way that I ended up doing it was storing all of the hit point data in a texture mask as a black and white texture mask, which allows me to also map that directly onto the hull as a visual effect. So you can see exactly what the condition of the armor is.
I saw a ship that got toasted in one of the last previous matches, and it just looked like you raked it over the coals. And I haven't seen that yet until there was that many lasers on the field.
Oh yeah, it's
Ugh.
a lot of fun. And there's a damage mask and there's a heat mask, and the heat mask is what gives you that ember burning you'll see in some places.
It looks like a crispy marshmallow.
So what part were you the most happy to finish of the game so far?
Well, none of it's done, so I can't really answer that one.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, what part will you be happiest to finish then? Do you think?
Um, we're
And don't do the whole game because that's cheating.
we're getting close to the conclusion of the skirmish game, I think. Shortly after early access, when we get the missile rework done and a couple other things, I think that the skirmish game itself will be in a good finished state. And then we're going to throw it into chaos when we add carriers. But at that point, before that point, between that middle ground right there is where we can call the skirmish game done until we undone it.
So what is the general future idea for the game's development? I know you were earlier talking about like conquest mode.
Yes. So the big major stuff we're going to add is carriers, which I think is going to add a whole new dynamic to the game. It's going to change a lot of the scouting behavior and add a couple things that people have been requesting. Like everyone wants carriers just because everyone likes carriers, but it's also going to add some important mechanical features like the ability to target specific parts of a ship, which you can't do with the ships themselves for a lot of reasons, but I won't go into those. And then the conquest mode I've talked about extensively in the past. Basically, what that's going to be is a solar system level war between your team, and another team. And it'll be kind of a persistent, dedicated server thing where you join, everyone makes actions that they want to make for that turn. And when the turn is completed, all those actions get resolved. And then all the battles and encounters get resolved in the skirmish game. And it'll be a continuation of all of your fleets will be static, or not static. They'll be continuous. So ships that you lose in a skirmish battle aren't going to return to the strategic map with you. Every missile that you fire isn't going into the next battle until you hit a port and resupply or find a resupply ship, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And then we'd
Brutal.
really like to do a campaign, a storyline campaign, which is going to be an alliance versus OSP, Civil War kind of thing that we've talked about in the lore document. A campaign, a storyline campaign with voice acting and cutscenes and missions and all that is going to be a lot of work, though. So when it does come, it's going to be long in the future, but it is something that we'd really like to do.
That was a lot. That's a big thing. I didn't know. I didn't know we were getting. You were planning on doing. Not only I thought the conquest was a community thing. It's kind of cool to see that you're.
He's hacking it out.
Yeah.
He's hacking it out of watching how the games play, and I didn't even know there was a conquest map until like I was scrolling through like 2 months ago on there to see all like the hex map stuff. I'm like, oh, this is a thing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if the conquest was an idea they had on their own or if they saw it on our roadmap from a long time ago, because this has been something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I don't know. They're obviously not doing it in the same format that I'm going to be doing it for the game itself when it's actually implemented, but I don't know if it was entirely their own idea or whether they're kind of riffing off of that.
Please join us on the other half of this interview where we talk about modding and fleet composition. You can catch the other half of this interview over at youtube.com/Mission Reloaded. Thank you for watching. Peace.